The doorbell rang on a quiet Thursday morning. When I opened it, I was greeted by a young woman I'd never seen before. "I'm Sophia," she said, her voice hesitant. "I'm Daniel's daughter." Hearing my son's name for the first time in 25 years brought a flood of memories. None of them good. Not since the morning I found my husband lying on the floor, the safe behind him open and empty. Every penny we'd saved for 18 years was gone. And my son? Gone too. Vanished without a trace, without an explanation. That morning, my husband died. 3 days later, the heart attack took him. Daniel disappeared with him, leaving nothing but questions. Now, this young woman, Sophia, stood on my doorstep. She spoke softly. "He died last month." Her words like a punch to my chest. "Before he passed, he told me everything, and he gave me this." She held out a small silver key. "What's this for?" I asked, feeling the weight of my past bearing down on me. "He said you deserve to know the truth. Why he left, where he's been, what he's done all these years." Her words made my heart race. This girl had his eyes, Antonio's eyes, the ones that had once held so much love, now shadowed with regret. "He spent his whole life trying to tell you something," she added. "This key opens it." I stared at the key, an ordinary object, yet in that moment, it felt like the key to a past I had buried long ago. I took it from her hand. I wasn't sure if I was ready to unlock the truth, but I knew I had to. By the time I used that key, everything I had believed for over 20 years was about to shatter. My name is Rosa, and I'm 67 years old. This is my story. But before we dive in, I want to ask you to leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to the Never Too Old channel, where we believe the best chapters of our lives are yet to come. It all started that Thursday morning, 9:47 a.m. I almost didn't answer the door. I never get visitors, mostly salespeople. But when it rang again, insistent and urgent, I checked through the window. There she was, standing on my doorstep, a young woman in her early 20s, dark hair pulled into a ponytail, a worn backpack slung over her shoulder. She didn't look like a salesperson. She looked nervous. I opened the door just a crack. "Can I help you?" I asked. "Are you Rosa Dorado?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. There was something in her face, a familiarity that hit me like a wave. It was then that I saw it. Her eyes. Antonio's eyes. The same shade of brown, the same shape. "Who's asking?" I replied, my hand tightening on the doorknob. "I'm Sophia, Daniel's daughter." My world stopped for a second. Daniel, my son, was gone, and now this stranger, this young woman, was standing before me, carrying the ghost of my past. I opened the door wider and without thinking invited her inside. We sat at the kitchen table and I made coffee to keep my hands busy. I needed something to do. My morning work, client invoices, a calculator, red pens circling discrepancies, was spread across the table, but I shoved it aside, not wanting to focus on numbers anymore. Sophia sat silently, her hands wrapped around the coffee mug like she was trying to warm herself. "He died last month," she said quietly, breaking the silence. I didn't need to ask who she was talking about. I already knew. "Cancer," she added softly, "pancreatic cancer. He was sick for almost a year." The news hit me like a punch in the stomach. My son, the boy I hadn't seen or heard from in 20 years, was gone. The anger, the hurt, the confusion, everything I'd buried for so long, it all came rushing back. "Before he passed," Sophia continued, "he told me things about you, about why he left. He gave me this." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small silver key, setting it on the table between us. "He said everything is in there," she added, "the answers you've been waiting for." I stared at the key, an unassuming shape mocking me. My son had vanished without a word, and now this girl, his daughter, was offering me a key to unlock the past? "What's in there?" I asked, though part of me wasn't sure I wanted to know. "A storage unit," Sophia said, Here in San Diego. Everything's there. Everything he took. Everything he was hiding. The words felt like they were suffocating me. I hadn't seen my son in over 2 decades. He disappeared with all of our savings, and now he was gone. And this girl, with my husband's eyes, was sitting across from me telling me there was more to the story. I took the key in my hand. It was lighter than I expected. Cold. "Where is it?" I asked, my voice rough. Sophia showed me the address, and I barely processed it. My mind had already returned to that spring, the spring when I learned what betrayal really felt like. I was 42 then. Antonio was 62, still strong, still working at the restaurant we'd built from nothing. La Cocina de Antonio, our small Mexican restaurant, always full of customers, always filled with the smell of carnitas and fresh tortillas. Daniel had worked there too since he finished high school. He was 22, good with customers, never complained. We were a family. Then, Antonio kept cash in a safe in the back office. It was his way of being cautious after losing everything as a child when a bank failed in Mexico. He didn't trust banks. Every week, he'd stash away a little extra from the register. Over the years, that money built up. $250,000, carefully organized in envelopes, labeled with payroll, supplier payments, and a building fund for the restaurant. When Daniel turned 21, Antonio taught him the combination to the safe. "In case something happened to me," he told him, "you need to take care of your mother." That morning, everything fell apart. Antonio went into the office to get money for the suppliers, and I was in the kitchen preparing vegetables. I heard a thud from the back office, followed by a quiet groan. When I went to check, I found him on the floor, his face gray, one hand clutching his chest. Behind him, the safe stood open, completely empty. I don't remember much after that. Calling 911, holding his hand as they loaded him into the ambulance, waiting in the sterile, fluorescently lit hospital room. They kept him on life support for 3 days. The doctors used words like catastrophic damage, preparing me for what I knew was coming. I tried calling Daniel over and over, voicemail every time. When I went to his apartment, everything was still there. His clothes in the closet, his bed unmade, but he was gone. The police questioned me, asking who knew the combination. Only 3 people knew it: Antonio, Daniel, and me. And now, Daniel was gone. My husband died thinking I had been betrayed by our son. And that's what I believed too, that Daniel had stolen everything and vanished. He never came back. He never called. Sophia's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. "Are you okay?" I blinked, returning to the present. The key was still in my hand, its weight grounding me. I spent over 20 years thinking I knew what happened. Now you're telling me I was wrong. Sophia didn't look away. "I don't know if you were wrong. I just know there's more to the story." I stood up, carrying my cold coffee to the sink. When I turned back, she was still sitting there waiting for me to make a decision. We needed to go to the storage unit. If there was something there I needed to see, I needed to face it. I took a deep breath. "Let's go," I said, still unsure of what I was about to find. We drove to the storage unit. Every mile seemed to stretch into a lifetime, each turn taking me closer to the truth, closer to understanding why my son had disappeared, what had happened all those years ago. We arrived at the facility, a cold, impersonal place, filled with metal doors and forgotten things. The manager handed me the key and a map, and we walked towards Unit 247. The door was heavy, the lock stiff, but I twisted the key into place. When the door opened, the smell of dust and time greeted me. Inside, a small green safe sat against the back wall. It was identical to the one Antonio had kept in the restaurant. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. I opened it, and the stacks of cash inside were unmistakable. This wasn't just money. It was the restitution for everything my son had taken from us. But there was more. Photographs, letters, a watch Antonio had given Daniel, and a final letter from Daniel himself explaining everything: the reason he disappeared, the choices he made, and the guilt he carried all those years. In that moment, I understood. He had taken everything, but he had spent his life paying it back, quietly in ways I never knew. He had never stopped caring, never stopped trying to make things right. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the evidence of his life, the life I had missed. Tears came not from anger, but from something deeper, something I couldn't name. And in that moment, I knew I had to accept what had happened. The betrayal, the years apart, it didn't fix anything, but it helped me understand. Sophia and I left the storage unit in silence. I knew I couldn't forgive Daniel in the way I once thought I should, but maybe acceptance was enough.